Me and my dad used to play tag. He'd drive. I never got along with my dad. When kids would say, my dad can beat up your dad, I'd say, yeah, when?
What did you get that for Father's Day, Sid? Somebody gave you a book of jokes?
No, I got them all online. I already shared them with the mayor. So.
Hello, everyone. It'll just be a couple minutes. We have a few people logging off from the Finance Committee meeting and they'll be joining us.
Here.
We were up in your old neighborhood, Sid. We were up in Onalaska over the weekend.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you do?
That's where my daughter lives. My daughter lives up there, and she likes the river a lot. So we spent Sunday afternoon floating up and down the river.
Isn't that a beautiful river?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Really fun.
Yeah.
Hi, Holly.
I said,
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Greg.
Gene.
Right,
I was reading a thing where it said, if you want to make a good impression, you should constantly smile when you're on video.
I can't smile all day long anymore.
I know we're on all the time.
Seems like it. All right, I think I'm waiting for, yep. Looks like we're almost ready. Holly, are you ready?
yep,
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. It's Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, and we'll start out with roll call.
Boersma,
Sure.
Caravello.
Here.
Hume,
Here.
Hiley,
Here.
Hirsch,
Here.
Hunt,
Here.
Jensen,
Here.
Gaki. Here. Majewski.
Here.
Reeves. Here. Riley.
Here. Here.
Did you get me? Because there was a lot of static.
Oh, we got you. Schumacher.
Here.
All right, there are 12 elders present.
All right, thank you. We'll go into communications, and the first one, as usual, is if you could just mute your mics if you're not speaking, that would be great. And then just unmute it when you want to speak, and then I can recognize you. And then just another thing, I did a little bit of reviewing on Robert's rules. And one thing I discovered that I haven't really been conscious of is one of the rules is each council member is supposed to speak only twice to a particular issue. And the rules state that you need to let everyone else speak before you speak your second time on a specific issue. So I just wanted to put that reminder out there. I don't anticipate any problems, and I tend to be pretty relaxed on the rules, but that was just one that I stumbled across when I was going through the book. So just putting that out there for you. There's no presentations tonight. Do any council members have any communications?
Sure. If I might. The Community Affairs and Council Policy Committee is having a special meeting to follow up on the racial justice resolution from last council meeting. That meeting will be online at 5:30 on Thursday, and we're welcoming any input from the community.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other communications? All right, hearing none. Minutes and reports are in the packet. Item 3 is public comment. Holly, was anybody signed up to speak? I didn't see anything. Did you?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Item number 4 would be the consent agenda. And I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second?
Did you catch that, Holly?
Yep.
All right, and would anybody like anything removed and acted on separately from the consent agenda?
Your Honor, if I may, this says Riley, and this will be, I'll talk one more time tonight, I guess, maybe. In any event, I did have a correction on the minutes. I don't know if it's important or not, but I would like it to reflect for the June 3rd Parks and Rec, that I was in fact present, even though it does not indicate I was, but it does indicate that I had 2 different motions during that meeting, so I must have been there. I would just request that that be corrected, please. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, we
Right.
really need to get a new minute taker for that committee because that happens to be me. So sorry about that.
Thank you.
But thanks for looking too. So we'll get that corrected. Anything else? All right, so we'll approve the consent agenda with the correction to the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. That carries. That takes us to new business. First item is ordinance 10 of 2020. And this one comes from the Plan Commission for a first reading. The person Caravello, would you like to introduce this one?
I would. Thank you, sir. This is Ordinance 10 of 2020, an ordinance amending the zoning classification at 117 Ashbury Lane in the city of Stoughton, Wisconsin. And this is a first reading. And Plan Commission recommends approval 5-0.
All right, anything more you want to add, or Planning Director Shield, did you have anything you want to add to this one?
The materials in the packet identify the parcel. On either side of this parcel are 2 other properties that are zoned TR6 already. So this would essentially connect that zoning district to have TR6 properties in a row. So if there's any questions, we'd certainly try to field them. If you have them after the meeting, let me know and I'll respond to those as well.
I can.
Yeah, I have a question. Rodney, is this, because I know this came up last year and we voted it down. Is this part of like a neighborhood group? Is this the one that had the neighborhood group that they had to get some permission or something? Or was this the one where the neighbor adjacent to them is the only single family home in that area that was objecting to it? I can't remember which one it was.
Well, I think you've hit on both scenarios. There was a neighbor that owns a single family home to the north of this, not adjacent to it, but farther up the street. That was a strong objection to this. That property owner is no longer there. In addition to that, there was some restrictive covenant language that may have suggested you couldn't have this to be a twin family home or twin residence home property. But it was reminded of us at the Plan Commission that the city doesn't govern covenants, or we don't regulate by covenants, but that's the status of both of those items. The covenants have not been amended, and the property owner that was outspoken about it in the past is no longer lives at that property.
Okay. Thank you. Man, I'm impressed that I remembered that. Okay.
Nice job.
Yeah, and I believe there was an effort to go around and talk to the neighbors and get some signatures, which is a little challenging because of the COVID. But we reviewed those at the Planning Commission as well. So if you have any other questions, certainly between now and the next council meeting, if you want to forward them to Director Shield, we can get you some answers. Next item is R103 of 2020, and that comes from the Plan Commission as well, Alderperson Caravello.
And yeah, if I can see it in front of me, that would be great. Ah, look, there it is. Magic.
Speak and you shall receive.
Thank you, sir. This is R103 of 2020, approving a conditional use permit request by Megan Bisbee of Viking Day Camp for a group daycare use at 2125 Macomb Road, units 102 to 105, Stoughton, Wisconsin. And this is also a first reading, I believe.
Nope.
Well, that's a resolution.
Oh, this is the resolution? Ah, this is the resolution. Okay. And I so move.
Is
Okay.
there a second? Did I hear a second?
Yes.
I
Okay,
have heard a second.
President. Okay, very good. Would you care to elaborate on this one, Alderperson Caravello?
I think since I have no control over anything that we are able to see, these folks just want to operate Viking Day Camp out of some of the rental units, the commercial rental units in I believe it's called Macomb Place or Macomb Plaza. And did not really see any problem with it. Looked like they had enough parking was available, and I'm sure Rodney could fill us in with any other questions somebody might have.
So the building that's the Macomb Place actually has had a number of vacancies over time. Jacobson Meat was the most recent, probably tenant to leave the facility. This will actually utilize, I believe it's 4 units as was described on the lower level of this multi-story building to accommodate the group daycare use. And the group daycare is conditional in the district. It's recommended unanimously by the Plan Commission to move forward.
Yeah, and full disclosure on this one, I actually have a business relationship with Bisbee's, and they had discussed with me the desire to locate in Stoughton. They have one in McFarland called the Spartan Day Camp, and I suggested this is one of the potential sites, and they went out, and I never heard from them again, and lo and behold, they worked out a deal with the property owner, and it's before us tonight.
So Rodney or Nurse Bradley, what's the remaining business? Is it just Spinner's Pizza on the first floor, or is there other businesses on that first floor?
The Spinner's Pizza remains there, and I don't believe there's any other tenants in that facility right now. There might be one other tenant.
It's a vet clinic?
Yeah.
That's
Like
correct.
one?
You're right, correct. The vet clinic will remain as well.
But there's people that live above it, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And all those tenants don't have a problem, or do they have a say in it, or?
Public hearing was held at the Plan Commission meeting, and there was not an outpouring of opposition that we've heard from, either at the staff level or at the public hearing.
And they're all aware of it?
Owners were sent to direct mailings of the public hearing. That's correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I actually toured the one in McFarland one day, and it's quite nice. They do after school and day camp type stuff, similar to what you might see at Fort Little Green. So I think it'll be a welcome addition and give parents another option, especially with the uncertainty of what's going to happen with school, and people are going to be looking to figure out some options for their children. Any other questions or comments?
I was just curious, do they give like an age range that they're taking? I guess I missed that. Besides over 5 years.
Yeah,
Oh, it's 5 to 12 years. Okay.
Correct.
yep, up to 75 of them.
That's a lot.
More than I'd want to handle. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Next one is R104 of 2020. This one also comes from the Plan Commission, Alderperson Caravello.
Yes, this is our 104 of 2020, approving a conditional use permit request by Jim Hess for upper story and main floor dwellings at 700 Nygaard Street, Stoughton, Wisconsin, and I so move.
Second.
Second by President Hirsch, Alderperson Caravello.
This is a request for a structure, a conditional use for something that's a little bit different, I think, for a town that is out taking up, this will take up an empty lot, which is, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, it's in the strip next to BBG's, I think, where this would have a commercial space on the first floor along with a residential dwelling unit and residential dwelling units upstairs. And a little bit of I think, a interesting architecture for Stoughton. And I'm sure, once again, Rodney could fill us in with anything else, technical questions that folks have.
This will reside on a vacant lot just north of the hotel and just south of the daycare that has recently, I think closed. But certainly this lot has remained vacant since the middle 90s when the plat was put in place. The use before you, or the conditional use application, is what the council is acting on now to allow for the dwelling units in this zoning district. Across the street from this property are multifamily dwelling units.
So, if I may, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I guess I was looking to see what the how many total. I think there's. So is there? I was confused. Is there 9 upper and 9 lower apartments, or 9 total apartments? Because it said
9
includes
total.
9. Pardon?
9 total.
Okay.
One of which is on the first floor. They've
All
got
right.
they've got some enclosed parking on the first floor, a commercial space, and 1 residential unit on the first floor, and the upper floors are all residential.
Okay. Do we know about like the square footage and the price points that they're looking at? Is this a workforce development homes, or is this higher end? I'm just trying to figure out what they're actually building.
So I can speak more to the size than I can about the rents. The most of them are 2-bedroom units, approximately 1,200 to 1,300 square feet apiece. I don't think that they shared potential rents with us at this point.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Next item is R 105, 2020, and this one comes from Finance. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, R 105, 2020, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to amend the 2020-24 City of Stoughton Capital Improvements Plan budget to allow for standard equipment configuration in the fire department's command vehicle fleet. So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Doom. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, this is to move up the to get an additional command vehicle in there and some of the things that are involved with getting that trimmed out for its use. And the extra monies for that were going to be had by moving some of the other project or other CIP budgeted items that they had into some of the future years, 2021 and forward. And I think I hopefully didn't hack that too badly, but I think that is the gist of it.
Anything you want to add, Director Friedel?
No, that's about it. You can see it's actually a negative impact to the 2020 budget, with the caveat that Chief Rip will have to request the air compressor tanks in the 2021 CIP budget as we work through that process. But overall, in terms of fiscal impact, it's actually a negative impact to the budget at this point.
Okay, any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. R 106 of 2020 also comes from the Finance Committee. Alderperson Schumacher.
R 106, 2020, authorizing and directing the proper city official to approve the reallocation of 2020 water utility capital improvement project funding. So move.
Second.
Second by Jensen. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, this had come through both finance and utilities committees, and they were unanimous approvals to move these forward. This is, I think this is a really important one because it allows us to accelerate the public lead service replacements by moving or utilizing some monies in that were saved because of under budgeted things and moving a little bit of money around in it. So it ultimately is a net negative as far as the fiscal impact goes, but is certainly a very positive public improving the water system anyway.
Okay. Any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none. Oh, is there a question? No, hearing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. All right, next one is R 107 of 2020. And this one comes from Stoughton Utilities, Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Resolution 107, 2020, dispensing with the Board of Public Works and determining that, can't even, too small, I'm trying to read this, sorry.
By that.
dispensing with the Board of Public Works and determining that threatened damage to the public water service lines by a Department of Transportation road construction project has created an emergency in which the public health and welfare of the city is endangered. And I would move for approval. Utilities Committee recommends council approval on a 7-0 vote.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Alder Hunt. Attorney Dragney, can you walk us through this one? And then maybe Director Weiss, if you have anything to add when he's done.
I'm gonna actually ask Attorney Snyder to walk us through it.
Oh, all right. I didn't see that she was on.
Thank you. Yes, so this is the resolution that we talked about potentially bringing forward at the last city council meeting. This will give justification essentially for the declaration of emergency, that proceeding with this lead service line replacement needs to be done without going through the public bidding process and needs to be awarded to the same contractor that WISDOT is using for their project that's going on right now. So this is that declaration explaining why there's a state of emergency and dispensing with the Board of Public Works on a temporary basis to give the city council the authority to unilaterally act.
Okay, thank you. Director Weiss, is there anything you want to add about the project or?
I would, thank you. Just would like to, I guess, make everyone aware that the public health threat is not community-wide. This isn't actually a significant concern even for those property owners. We're moving this forward ultimately because what we recognized is that we would have lead exceedances or higher lead levels in areas where there was construction occurring. So saw this as an opportunity that since we did have that higher lead level, that we would address also our public lead services at the same time. So this is not a threat for the entire community, just isolated actually to what we've identified to be 13 services, potentially 2 more, and we're addressing that through or partially through the lead service replacement on the public side.
All right, are there any questions or comments?
I've got one if I can ask that.
Sure, go ahead, Alderperson Schumacher.
The only thing that I've seen in here, as far as I know, I understand that this is a temporary suspension of the public water or the public works. Wait a minute. The committee that's going to overlook this, the Board of Public Works. There we go. I found it. That this is a temporary suspension in there, but it doesn't actually spell out any. Is it by time frame or is it done by just this job in particular? The only time frame I could find in here was for the underground access between June 22 and August 28. Is that the time frame then, or when does
This,
go
I'll
ahead,
speak
Matt?
to that. Yeah, so we actually don't have a regularly convening Board of Public Works in the city of Stoughton. And the reason that we provide here in this resolution to dispense with the need for that is that the statute we're dealing with specifically refers to the Board of Public Works making this determination, but then does give the council the opportunity to take it on itself and not go through a Board of Public Works. So, you know, this is the second time I could think of in over 10 years where we've had to talk about the Board of Public Works. And the only other time was the last time we adopted a resolution like this. So we don't actually have a Board of Public Works that meets and acts on contracts on a regular basis.
I see. So I guess it wouldn't matter whether or not this would be, well, would it have to be done every single time, I assume, just to get around the state statute?
I believe it would be in the case of adopting this type of resolution. There may be other circumstances where it would be necessary, but none that I've run into yet.
Okay, I just didn't want this resolution to be seen as if it had no time limit or wasn't attached to a particular project or such, that we were trying to get around the state statute on that. That wasn't totally clear to me, but just
Well,
think if we
and my
talk it
intent
out-
is that, and my intent is that we're only dispensing with the need for the public works in this particular case. And so if we have another situation like this, we'd have to address that again.
Okay, I mean, I just wanted to voice that out so that we weren't thinking we're trying to get around that statute permanently.
Okay, Alderperson Hiley has a
That's
question.
one question, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jill, I'm sorry if I missed this, but are these lead services on the public side only?
These lead services, actually, it's a variation. There's a little bit of both. We did find that we've got some that are copper on the private side and some that are lead on the private side as well. So with this, if this moves forward tonight, we will be actually noticing those customers that will be affected tomorrow with this work that's going to be moved forward. So they have the opportunity to replace theirs if they would like to. Otherwise, as we've got it laid out with the ordinance, that would happen then either over the next 15 years or with the grant funding that's available next year.
Okay.
I just had a question, Your Honor.
Sure, go ahead, Alderperson Boersma.
Yeah, I just wondered, maybe from Rachel or Matt, why this requires a supermajority.
Rachel, you want to take a crack at that?
Well, sure, I would say it's because the statute says so. This exact type of vote requires a 2/3 vote in the statute.
Okay, because it's an emergency?
Well, the
You're-
2/3 vote actually applies to the dispensation of the Board of Public Works.
Okay,
So it's related to that portion of this particular resolution, and it's all
Because
just
it's an
laid out in the
emergency.
statute.
this is dispensing of public works instead of because it's an emergency, but
Correct.
in this case, you have to do that because it is an emergency. Okay. I understand.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Hi.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Item number 11 is R108 of 2020, and this one also comes from utilities, Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Mayor Swadley. Resolution 108, 2020, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to enter into an agreement with Parisi Construction Company, Inc. for the 2020 water service line replacement construction contract 5-2020. And I would move for approval.
Second,
Second by Schumacher, Alderperson Jensen.
Yep, Utilities Committee met, 7-0 approval on this, recommending to council, and I think Jill can expand on this. This is basically about the one that we just worked on, the resolution 107, so they're related, and this would be the end result of that.
All right, Director Weiss.
Thank you. And this contract is based on, at the time when we moved this forward, we had 18, so we believed we had 18 lead services. That equated to $129,900 related to the unit pricing provided by Parisi. At this point in time, we've found that we have 13 lead services and 2 more to verify. So we're in good shape, contract-wise, to be able to stay within the budget dollars that have been allocated. It's a wonderful opportunity to address these lead services.
Any questions or comments from alders?
I do.
Alderperson Boersma, go ahead.
Somehow I can't get my volume on. It looks like I already have it, huh?
I
In any
can hear
case, I wondered if there's any issues at all about not bidding this thing out, whether or not we have any trouble with that. I understand the reason why we can't bid it out because we're kind of in that emergency situation, but almost all situations we try to bid it out, getting a bid for lowest bidder and all that, and why it's not possible to bid this out.
And who would like to take a hack at that one?
I think I could. So I think the situation that we find ourselves in is we had decided back in 2018 that the utility work wasn't going to be done with the DOT project that was moving forward. as we recognized that we had a lead exceedance, that we needed to come up with a plan ultimately to address those lead services, we looked at that as a 15-year opportunity and looked that out. And there was a potential then for DOT to come back. And we also looked at the potential for putting in new water services, or excuse me, new water main actually in the terrace. We looked at what our options were there. We felt also that that window of opportunity had closed. We'd already told DOT we weren't moving forward with this project. And DOT, they do a lot of planning. They've got a lot of, years and years in advance of doing a project. They do a lot of logistics. And so we felt that opportunity had passed us by. As we walked into the possibility of getting grant funding, we looked at some opportunities of how could we address these lead services on this section. Ironically, actually, the day that we had our pre-construction meeting with DOT, as we were doing some verification of what sites have lead services kind of throughout the community, we were on Main Street and ran across a service that was leaking. So reached out to DOT kind of with that and to talk through them the opportunity really for this project to move forward. They said ultimately that it was okay to move it forward as long as it didn't affect schedule. And I don't want to speak for our attorneys here, but ultimately we looked at all what options were available to us on how to address this and found that bidding it would be possible, yet the only way to achieve the requirements of DOT was for Parisi Construction to do the work because ultimately they had control over the contract. The other thing that we started as we looked at this a little bit harder, recognized the fact that we exceeded in 2014 and we exceeded in 2019. And in both of those situations where we exceeded, we were doing construction work right in those areas where we have the lead services. So there's a lot of factors that go into higher lead levels for sure, but definitely recognize the construction activities have potentially an impact on increasing lead levels. And so, basically we couldn't really bid it with there was only really one contractor that it could ultimately go to make this work happen because they had control over the DOT project, and we saw the health threat that potentially existed related to these lead services remaining in place given the construction work that's occurring there.
Thank you, Jill. I have one follow-up question, if I could, for both Rachel and Matt again. Any problems with other contractors who will likely know about the fact that this was not bidded out and that there wasn't a fair bid for this?
I'll take it first. That's why we're going through this process. That's why you adopted the resolution you adopted tonight to create the opportunity to award this contract without public bidding. So the only way that another contractor could legally challenge the award of this contract would be to legally challenge the council's determination that there is in fact an emergency that justifies going ahead without public bidding here. And so I think that's a difficult and unlikely case for a contractor to make. We chose this route to be transparent and to give the city a more solid basis than another alternative we discussed and considered and rejected, which was entering into a contract using a change order procedure, which we felt would leave the city in a more vulnerable legal position than doing it the way we are doing it.
All right, are there any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? None opposed, that motion does carry. Item number 12 is resolution 109 of 2020. And this one comes from Utilities and Finance. I think it was at Finance tonight. So Alderperson Schumacher, would you like to introduce this one?
Sure, I can.
I'll do it if you want, Brett.
Oh, no worries. We had the last words on it, so I'll take it. R-109/2020, authorizing and directing the proper city official to enter into a revised financial agreement between the state of Wisconsin and the city of Stoughton for costs for road improvements to US Highway 51 from Page Street to Whole Avenue. And so moved.
Second.
Alderperson Jensen, go ahead, Alderperson.
All right, this was, there were a few things that were budgeted, or the budget was increased on them a little bit due to some material costs and other such things. I think it amounts to, where did that dollar value go? Was it $65,000 difference between the original contract and this revised contract?
All right.
Yeah, that's it.
Anything you want to add, Alderperson Jensen?
Nope, I covered it.
All right, Director Weiss.
I think Director Friedel was going to address this one, but I can address any additional questions that might come up that are
Okay.
related to utilities.
Yeah, go ahead. I forgot who I shared the screen with. You want to walk us through this, Jamin?
Well, there's not much to walk through. I mean, we've already entered into the initial agreement. I believe the change in dollars was just due to the actual bids coming back for the work that the DOT is doing. We're basically looking at the change down on this page, and I'll get to it. So it's it's not really a change in scope or anything like this. It doesn't have anything to do with the work that the utilities are doing. But basically you can see the shifts here in the dollars. Here's the municipal funds that we need to pay for as part of this project. Overall, the project's $2.4 million. The city is on the hook for $360,000. And it's just a shift in the actual bid documents that came back once this project was received back. So that's about the gist of it. Again, it's about a $65,000 change, and that does include a 5% contingency built in for any potential scope changes as they work through this project.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? None opposed, that motion does carry. Item number 13 is here for a first reading, Ordinance 11 of 2020, and this is coming from the Public Safety. Alderperson Jensen?
Yes, this is Ordinance 11, 2020, amending Section 6-10 of the City of Stoughton Code of Municipal Code by adding all animals must be leashed in public places. And this is for a first reading. This was, if I could, Your Honor.
Sure.
This was citizen generated request from actually one main citizen. There's a couple of others that have voiced their support of this. It's simply going to make it so that if somebody is in a public place, public park, sidewalk, streets, wherever in the city, their animal, dog, cat, whatever, needs to be leashed. It standardizes everything, makes it very simple.
Any questions from anybody on this? Otherwise, it'll be back in.
I do have one. This does not apply to bees or chickens.
It is an animal, Sid. It does.
To bees, yes, bees need to be leashed as well, Sid.
And chickens?
Yeah.
Oh, chickens, yes, absolutely, especially those killer chickens.
So, Greg, does this also address like people allowing their cats to roam free? How does that work into it? Because that is kind of a problem.
that would be covered under, I believe, 6.3, which would be at large. That would not be covered under 6.10.
Okay, so 6.3 does say that animals should not be roaming at large.
Basically, it speaks to that, yes.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Otherwise, this one will be back in, at the next meeting. And then we have one more item on the agenda, and this one came out of the RDA. And I don't know if Jamin or Attorney Dragney, if you want to just kind of do an intro, and then the council can decide whether or not they want to go into closed session to discuss it. Does that sound appropriate?
Sure. Jamin, do you want to do that, or do you want me to?
I can touch on it briefly and you can add some color. Basically, the overall premise of the marathon site that's located on Main Street, where everybody's there's a covenant that basically restricts certain types of construction there, specifically related to residential and some commercial. So the RDA has been in a lot of discussions back and forth in terms of what are the best path forward to basically get rid of this covenant so we can actually develop something on that property. And this is part of the reason why it's been sitting vacant for so long. After a lot of deliberation and a lot of discussion with Speedway, the former owners, it's basically come into play that they'd be willing to sign an indemnification agreement that would basically indemnify them of any potential liability associated with this property due to the gas station being there at one point. A lot of the internal discussion at the RDA, and obviously with Stafford, Laura Callan has been working on this. She's been putting a lot of time into it. The RDA does feel that there's very minimal, pretty much no risk associated with this property, especially with the way the building is going to be built, the fact that the DNR has signed off on this property and said that it's safe. We believe this is just kind of standard language that Speedway puts into its agreements to limit liability years and years and decades down the road. But again, we feel that there's not a ton of risk here in terms of what could potentially happen there, based on the fact that, again, the DNR has signed off on this property and said it's okay, and the fact that they're going to build this property in a way that any environmental issues would be remediated and would not cause any damage to the folks living there or working there. And again, part of this is we need to get this covenant released. We could still sell the property, but the issue would be that no lender would give a potential developer any money to build on this site with this covenant in the agreement itself. So I did send out an email last week with the actual indemnification agreement attached, and that would be the document we'd be talking about tonight.
Anything you'd like to add, Attorney Dragney?
I think Jamin did a good job with that.
Any questions from any of the council members, or a motion to go into closed session would be in order?
I do have one question, Mayor, if I may.
Sure, please.
Thank you. Matt or Counselor, what, if any, potentially the person who ultimately develops this, would people who ultimately occupy it, could conceivably have any cause of action against the city in the event that it does turn out that there are some environmental issues down the road?
So I'm going to answer that in kind of two parts. One thing that I can add to what Jamin said that your question prompts is that as a part of selling this property, we're going to recommend that the redevelopment authority, that whoever agree to requirements that would further limit the exposure to liability. Namely, I think there are two kind of engineering or structural type requirements that we're recommending. One is no well on the site, no obtaining well water. And the other, I think, has to do with building slab on grade construction with the slab being above ground level, because those are two potential areas of that we can eliminate by requiring the owner to comply with those requirements. And if they fail to comply with those requirements, then they should have no recourse against anyone. Second, in order for the buyer or anyone else to have liability against the city, there would have to be, environmental damage that they would suffer that would be caused by going back to Speedway, either their action or inaction. So they'd have to be able to show a causal relationship between something Speedway did and some environmental damage that they would have a claim against Speedway for. And that's when the city's indemnification obligation would arise under this agreement. Indemnify Speedway in the event Speedway were subject to such a claim.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
And are there any other questions? And I think Rodney can confirm the slab, and obviously they can't put a well on there. They'll be on city water. But I think, Rodney, you have the plans, don't you?
We do, and they need to be reviewed for compliance with that condition, but I believe that they've been submitted in that fashion.
Thank you.
We also have a closure letter from the DNR on this site, I believe.
I just had one comment, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so as a realtor, vacant land, we've got a vacant land that we fill out. I would assume that the city would fill out this on this, and that would potentially cover us if we make a buyer aware that this had been a gas station and there is a possibility.
Well, so
I think
here,
I think that would be standard.
yeah, so here the buyer is fully aware of the history of the protection that we're dealing with. So I believe there's been full disclosure of the environmental history of the property and the restriction that we're dealing with.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just advise that we actually providing a real estate condition report for vacant land, just so we're covered.
We could certainly verify if we haven't done that. We can certainly do that.
Yeah, and I
Thank
believe
you.
they actually made the issue.
Yeah, but the seller has to do it. So
Any other questions or comments? You want to make a motion?
are you suggesting a motion for go second? Here?
I've heard President Hirsch, but I didn't hear what she said.
I said I'd make
move
a
to-
approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, so there's a motion by President Hirsch and a second by Alderperson Hiley to accept the agreement that was in the email. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
I have a follow-up, and that is, Mayor, go into closed session on this?
Well, we have a motion now on the table. We go into closed session if we felt a need. I guess that's up to the council.
I personally don't see a need.
I think we discussed.
I don't have an
it.
opinion.
All right, so everyone's good? So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you. Have a